Today I'm going to do a couple problems from lesson 4.7, day 2. They're directly from the homework, so if you're watching this video today, that's going to be really helpful to check your work. Solving inequalities is the same thing as solving two-step equations. So solving two-step inequalities is the same thing as solving two-step equations. The only difference is there's those two rules that we talked about. One is that if you are dividing or multiplying by a negative, then you have to flip the inequality. And we talked about reversing the order, and I'll explain that when I get to that problem. And the other is that we always want the variable on this side, on the right side. So on the left side, if it is on the right side, we flip the whole problem. And so I chose a couple problems that have that same qualities so that you'll have good examples. All right, so for this problem, we're going to start by, you always want to work with adding and subtracting. When you work with addition and subtracting, it's easier than working with multiplying and dividing because for this problem, if I'm going to do that first, I'm going to be dividing everything by 3, and you start getting into fractions and decimals, and it can get a little complicated. Always work on the side where the variable is, and for this problem, if I have a -7 to get rid of it, I'm trying to get that m by itself, I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So let's start with that. I'll add 7 to both sides. When I do that, that's going to get rid of my, these cancel out. So that leaves me with 3m is less than 2 plus 7 is 9. Now I need to divide. Since I'm dividing by a +3, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to flip the inequality or anything like that. I'm just going to divide as usual. So these cancel out. That leaves m by itself, and 9 divided by 3 is less than 3. The inequality is less than sign, so this is an open circle. So let's just put in a couple numbers on each side. We can just do 2, 3, and 4. I'm not going to write out all the numbers on the number line just for the sake of time. It's going to be an open circle on 3, which means 3 is not included. And to graph the inequality, it's really easy. If you kind of just look at which way the arrow is pointing, then you're going to shade in this side. Okay, so that means m is less than 3. That means any number that is less than 3 can be m. 2 is a solution, 4 is not a solution. Okay, let's look at another problem. So here's another one. This is also directly from the homework. I'm going to look at the side where my variable is, which is my r is on this side. So I'm going to work with this side first. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. That's my first. So I can get rid of these. So a +2 and a -2, these cancel out. I'm going to solve this. -13 minus 2, same signs, add them up, different signs subtract. So these are the same signs. I'm going to add them up, take the sign of the bigger digit, which is -13, is less than or equal to, and I have a -5r. Now, here's when we're going to flip the inequality. Because I'm dividing by a negative number, I'm dividing by -5. It doesn't matter what up here in the inequality, whether it's positive or negative, it doesn't matter. It's if I'm multiplying or dividing by a negative, and here I'm dividing by a negative. So -5 divided by -5, what you do to one side, you do to the other. Here, these cancel out. I get r, and here, a -15 divided by -5 is +3. Now, I'm going to flip the inequality because I divided by negative, so this now becomes 3 is greater than or equal to r. And the reason we do this is because when you're dividing by a negative number, if you think of the number line, yes, it is a rule, and that's how we do it, but so you understand the mathematical reasoning behind it, when you're dividing by a negative number, you are technically going the reverse order on the number line. So if you are heading one way, by using a negative, you are now going the inverse or the opposite of the other way, and that's why we flip that inequality. Okay, that's one rule. The second rule, this was a good problem because it had both rules in it. The second rule is the inequality, they tell you that the variable should be on this left side. So let's move the variable here. And then you flip the whole problem around, is less than or equal to 3. The quantity, the amount, did not change. 3 is greater than or equal to r, is the exact quantity as r is less than or equal to 3. So look at this. On this side, the less than side is pointing this way. On this side, the greater side is pointing this way. So that did not change the value. Looking at our number line, so I'm just going to plot a couple numbers. And when you have the less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, number 3 is included. So 3 is included. So that's going to be a circle. That's going to be a closed circle. The 3 is included. And then, again, you can still use the same rule. If you look at that less than sign, it's kind of pointing this way. So that's the way that should be shaded. You shade it the same way that your arrow is pointing. And that would be your answer. Okay, let's try a different problem. All right, here we have distributive property. So you're using all the properties that you've learned in math and kind of putting them all together to solve these problems. Inequalities does not separate your rules from everything else that you've learned. So for distributive property, remember, we look at the parentheses, we look at the side with the variable. This is the side that I'm going to work on. So I'm going to do what I've learned in distributive property. 2 times b is equivalent to 2b. 2 times minus 4 or negative 4. Minus 4, negative 4 mean the same thing. So 2 times a negative 4 is minus 8 or negative 8. And if you think about it, even if you did plus a negative, the stop and add the opposite like we've learned before, it's still a 2 times a negative 4. Is greater than negative 6. Now we have an inequality. We're back to a two-step inequality. We solved our distributive property. We're back to a two-step inequality. So looking at the side where my variable is, I have a minus 8. I'm going to add 8 to both sides to get rid of that 8. Now, minus 8 plus 8 equals 0. Negative 6 plus 8. So we're going to add these. Negative 6 plus 8, same signs, add them up. Different signs, subtract. Take the sign of the bigger digit. That's going to be a positive. The inequality remains the same. I have not divided or multiplied by a negative number. And then I'm going to bring down my 2b. Now I have a one-step equation. I'm still trying to isolate the variable and get the b by itself. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. Since this is a positive 2 that I'm dividing by, I am not flipping the inequality. The inequality stays the same. So b, these cancel out, is greater than, and this is a positive 1. So we're going to do 0, 1, 2. And this is going to be an open circle because 1 is not included. And again, if it points this way, you graph this way. That's just kind of the easier way to remember these rules. Okay? So here's another problem that we've done. I took this directly from the homework. So this problem, remember, it has some combining like terms on it, and it's still an inequality. You're going to use the same rules that we've done before. It's not anything new that we've learned. You're going back to what we've learned about combining like terms and solving equations, except we're using it for inequalities. So this was kind of a good problem. It had a little bit of everything. Looking at this side, where our variable is, 3x minus 7x plus 2. So I'm working on this side. I'm going to look at this 3x minus 7x first. So I'm going to start solving there. And we know that when we subtract integers, we do a stop and add the opposite, or keep change, flip. So 3x plus a negative 7x is going to give me a negative 4x, plus 2 is less than, and then 10 minus 12, again, stop and add the opposite. So now this is a positive and negative. Subtract, and I'm going to get negative 2. Now I can just start solving as usual. So I'm going to do minus 2, minus 2. Remember, we're going to work with the addition and subtraction first. That gives me negative 4x is less than negative 2 minus 2. Same signs, add them up, gives me also a negative 4. Now it's a one-step equation. But remember what we did with our inequalities. So the rule was if you divide by a negative, which I did here, you're going to flip the inequality and then divide by a negative. Now these cancel out, so x is greater than positive 1. So remember, I flipped the inequality once when I was dividing by a negative 4, And then since the variable is on the left side and that is correct, we're just going to leave it the same. So let's say my 0, 1, 2, open circle, and shade in, pointing the same way that my inequality is. I kind of like to shade in my arrow. And that is it. So the 1 is not included. All right, that's it for today.